Welcome back to Moms Coaching Moms. And we are on week 2 of talking about mental health because October is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we decided to do this whole month dedicated to mental health. Last week, we talked about navigating mental health storms as moms and how just important it is that it starts with us. And we need that space to look at ourselves, to have time for ourselves, to take care of ourselves, because we know as moms, when we're dealing with our kids every day, when we're dealing with partners, when we're dealing with work, with anything else, it starts with us. And so that's where we started last week. And so you can find our other video on our channel or on our pages. Today, though, we want to take it to navigating mental health storms with our kids. And I think often that's sort of where we start, because it's like, oh my goodness, my kids, like, they're kind of around us. They need us. They're in our faces, but we did the moms first because for a very specific reason, because we also know, and I know Christine and I have really found that it starts with us, and how we are doing will have huge impact on our kids and how we are able to even show up for them, how we can even help them. If we're completely dysregulated and have like trauma of our own, which we all do, and all of that, and if we're not dealing with that, we're not going to be able to show up in a way that maybe would be most effective for our kids. So today, we are going to get to hear your story, or one of your stories. And, the question kind of is like what happens when the mental health storm is with our kids or one of our kids? And so I just want to pass it over to you, because we all have lots of storms. We know that we all have lots of storms in our own lives with our kids, on and on. And this is one of the storms that you guys have walked through in your family.
Yeah, I was thinking it's so hard to know where to start because, mental health storms and struggles have been something that I've dealt with pretty much my whole life for myself. And when the reality sort of came crashing down that my children also have some of the same struggles, it brought a whole different dimension to it. It's one thing if I'm going to be struggling with it myself. Man, when it's your kids that are dealing with those same things, it brings a whole different perspective. And so,
Mm-hmm.
it actually was a few years ago now. Both of my kids at different times have had struggles with anxiety and depression. And however, 3 years ago now, our youngest, who also has a host of special needs as well, it kind of came to a head with her, and we knew in terms of I had her in regular therapy. We were aware that she was sort of sinking deeper. However, we weren't aware of just how deep and how desperate she was.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, part of it was I had my own crash and burnout, not even a year before that. And so I was just barely getting myself back together.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, our daughter attempted suicide on May 30th of 2018. And thankfully, she wasn't successful. But it created sort of this snowball effect that our family just sort of went into a free for all of what the heck just happened. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember where I was. I remember sort of the whole chain of events, and realizing, now what just happened. And I remember, sitting by, her hospital bed that that whole night, and I mean, she ended up being in the hospital for 2 weeks after, um, and it's again when it's you, you're like, okay, I can handle this, I can do this, whatever, or maybe I can't do this, and that's why I'm getting help. You feel completely helpless when it's your child.
Yeah.
And for me, I remember that very time when I said, okay, this is going to be part of our story, and we're not uh, going to let shame take over. We're not going to be silenced by this. We're not going um, to sweep this under the rug as if it's nothing. And at the same time, how do you make it a part of your story that it can get you out of this hole and into something more healthy? And and for us, that moment, um, that moment came when I realized I really needed to adjust my parenting style with her.
Mm.
And uh, I I thought that by um, always sort of pushing her and thinking of always trying to, like, you can do this, you've got this, keep going. that
We know those statements well as parents, don't we?
that you think that um that, okay, well, I'll just do it for you then, and then I'll show you how to do it, and then you do it. it
Mhm.
it doesn't always work that way. And and sometimes, by us continually either trying to fix it or by us telling them that they have to keep going, the story that they get in their head is that there's something wrong with them. They're perpetually
Mm.
broken. Um,
Yeah.
that they uh, they're too stupid to do it. And that was exactly what happened with her.
Mm.
She just could not live up to the expectations that we were putting on her, even though we thought that by getting all these supports for all of her diagnosis in place, that would sort of fix her.
Mm. Right.
Well, there's nothing to fix. It's just her.
Yeah.
And that is the revelation that came out of her attempt. The revelation that we kind of needed to peel back those layers and to find out exactly who she is and where she's at, and to operate out of that space and not making her something that either she's not or that she thinks that she can never be. Whatever that is, we needed to back it up and back it up and back it up and back it up. And so, for the next 2 years after that, that's kind of what we did, is we just kept backing it up and backing it up. And I realized that for her, and I know next week we're going to be covering uh, dealing with mental health challenges with, special needs and invisible illnesses, which we
Mhm.
both have kids with that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, our daughter has 9 different diagnoses. It's a complex case. Uh, doctors are scratching their heads, all over, trying to figure out how they can best support her. And and at the same time, for her, it was really important that we saw her where she was at.
Mhm.
And I know that we're kind of going to be going into, radical acceptance. And
Mhm.
and quite
Yeah.
frankly, I remember when I learned that skill and I actually just wanted to say F you. Like, I don't have to accept this. Like,
Right.
I'm going to find a way to fix
Uh-huh.
this. Like, what do you mean I have to, like, accept it? And for me, part of that accepting was, I had to understand ambiguous grief. And I think that
Mm.
that is a huge part of navigating the mental health storm with our kids, is that this may not be what we wanted, needed, or deserved. This may not be the life that we thought that we would have. And it is.
Yeah.
And so, because it is, it's okay to grieve what it's not,
Yeah.
because it's both. And you can't truly accept what is if you're not grieving and allowing to let go what isn't. And it's the two sides to the same coin. You can't really have one without the other. And so in order to truly radically accept something, we also need to acknowledge what it's not. And so, when we first have our children and we look down at that, perfect little baby, we have all of these dreams, goals, ideas, aspirations, whatever it is for that child.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily play out that way.
No.
And so then, yeah, you need to accept where you are and grieve what isn't. And so for me, that's what that was about. And so when we did sort of get what I called our second chance with our daughter, that became my main focus. And not that you just focus all the time on the grief, you allow the grief to come, and you also allow the acceptance to come, and you start to actually see your child in a totally different way. It doesn't necessarily fix the challenges. Like, Lord knows our challenges are not fixed, and our daughter struggles on a regular basis, and between all the different diagnoses and whatever, life is hard and it's precious.
Yeah.
And life is challenging and it's beautiful. And when you start to accept both of those sides, that's when the truth is revealed. That is when you really start to see what your child is, truly is. And I am very excited to report that the other day, in filling out forms for yet another specialist, they had a whole section on mental health, and one of the questions was the suicidal ideation, and she answered no to that. So
Wow.
she did say she wants the pain to stop, and her exact words were, "I want the pain to stop and I want to live." And so that coming out of her mouth, I know that all the EQ work that we have been doing on a regular basis, the open communication lines that we have, the diving deeper into the uncomfortable, the holding space for the stuff that maybe you don't want to hear that your kid is struggling with, all of those things, in my opinion, have created the space for her to grow and to be exactly where she's at. And again, is it easy? Well, no.
Yeah.
No. Straight up no.
No.
And at the same time, it is beautiful because she does feel like she can, she can say it. And, she starts out by saying, "I have something to say, and can you just hear me out?" And the answer is always yes. Yes, I will hear you out. And sometimes I've had to say, this is upsetting to me, and I'm really glad you shared. And there's something about those two sides that creates that space of understanding. It is two sides of a coin. That is what life is. And so, yeah, that's sort of where that one part of our storm, I can't believe that it's been 3 years already, and how far we have come. And again, that acknowledgement of far we've come, it isn't that the challenges have left.
Yeah.
The challenges remain. The struggle is real. It is very real. And it's within that struggle that resiliency is built. It's within that allowing it to be what it is, and not always trying to fix it, not always trying to have a solution, not always trying to push beyond what is able in this moment. Will it be a different able ability later on? Maybe, and maybe not. And frankly, that doesn't matter. It's right here in this moment where our child is at. And I know, and again, it's different because I know that, my daughter is actually an adult, and I talk about her as a child. Well, that's part of the special needs, is she's very much still a child. And so that in itself just brings a whole different part of dimension to all of this, and navigating all of that, both for her and for me and for the rest of our family, because it does matter. It definitely does matter.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's another whole level and space of grief too
Absolutely. Yeah. It
for
really,
you
really
guys.
is. And I know that it is a grief for her. She is aware
Yeah.
enough that, you know, as an almost 20-year-old, her life is very different than the average 19, 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And uh, what she's capable of doing right now is very different. And we celebrate what she's capable of doing.
Yes.
And we acknowledge that because that is her reality. And I think that that is such another critical part, is that we have to meet someone in their reality. We
Yeah.
can't tell them to leave their reality and join mine because maybe, I don't know, I think mine's better. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like, their reality is their reality.
Yeah.
And so if we want to meet with them, we have to go to their reality. We can't
Mhm.
expect them to come to ours. And does that mean that their reality might shift and change? Absolutely. But right now, if we want to meet our child, we have to go to their reality.
Yes.
And that is the challenge as a parent, because sometimes we're like, how can that be your reality? Well, it is.
And
So
that is that radical acceptance that you talked
it
about.
is. Yeah.
Just I mean, we talk about too, and I say it so often in my house too, like accept first, then seek to understand. But
Totally.
and that's that radical acceptance. It's accepting just what is
Yeah.
in that moment, in that time, in that space, whoever that is, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And honestly, in the world right now, we could use a lot more of just radical acceptance with
Right.
people.
For
But we're
sure.
not going to digress. We're going to keep it as moms. We can do that with other moms, but this week is more specific with our kids. And yeah, like it really is so important. Um, like I don't know, as moms, as parents, I know, but there's always that thing of like, well, we just want it better for our kids. We just want our kids. We don't want our kids to have to struggle. We don't want our kids to have to go through what we went through. We don't like, all those sayings that we say. And at the same time, we can make life a whole lot harder for our kids and ourselves if we're constantly like not living in the now and in acceptance for our kids. If we're always sort of like trying to push that limit or, again, like, for our kids and us, it's so tightly tied to what we're going to talk about next week as well with,
Yeah.
all of that. But with Moms Coaching Moms, we have a definition, a name we call fix it factor. And it just, like as you were talking, like it reminded me of that. So we have a definition of it. Fix it factor is an automatic response to give unasked for advice, to fix, correct, teach, or relate to someone else. It generally comes from a place of wanting to help, and it also often causes a fight or flight response in the other person. And that's something that like totally changed our lives. I know both of us in our homes,
Totally.
and with stuff like this with our kids. When a storm hits, we just want to fix.
Yeah.
We just want to make it better for them. We want to take the pain away. We want to make it all okay because, well, that's what we do as moms, right? Like they get an owie and we kiss it better and it's all better.
Yeah.
We can't do that with everything. And that's where that radical acceptance comes in. And then the grief.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, because we think that if we fix it for them, if we make it better for them, that that's actually going to help them. And the truth is that their own personal resiliency is going to come from them being able to help come up with the solutions that are going to work for them. So how
Mm-hmm.
do we do that as moms?
Yeah.
How do we help our kids to work through challenges in a way that it actually they can come up with some ideas of fixing it, to be able to try things, to be able to fail at something, to be able to try that and be like, okay, that didn't work. Okay, well, what now can you try? What
Yeah.
else is in there? because we're not always going to be there to do that for them. And so I think that that is a huge part, is uh, us trying to fix it all the time. That builds our resiliency. That helps us to become, stronger and have more wisdom. That actually is not helping them create the same
No.
thing. And I think that I've also done the opposite with the fix it, is after my kid has come up with an idea, and my thought, or my first thing out of my mouth is, what were you thinking? Well, how does that help them?
Yeah, right.
Like, so I know I did that too. And now, we have this joke, and it's like, are you fix it factoring me? Yes, I am. Okay,
Yeah.
so and it works both
Try that
ways,
again.
right?
It
So,
does. It
okay,
does.
can I have a do-over? Yes, you can. So, because that is actually building their resiliency. And
Mhm.
and oh shoot, that didn't work. Okay, so now what are you going to try? Most things are not going to be detrimental. Now, clearly, if a kid jumps out in front of a car, well, maybe they're not going to be able to get a do-over. So yes, there are some things when it comes to safety, when it comes to protection, life and death. Yes, more direction is sometimes needed. And we are definitely not saying that. It's more like, okay, the milk spilled, the glass broke, I don't know, the cupboard door got left open, whatever it is, the cupboard door won't shut. All these different things, those are things that can definitely help our kids with that. And so when the tougher things do come, they do feel like they have a more sense of ability to work through it,
Yeah,
because we have helped them in the smaller things, where so often it's just easier if we do it ourselves. And so that's helping us. It's not necessarily helping them. And so, yeah, we do cover that as well.
exactly. And I think it also allows them to want to come to us more when we're not
Yes.
like when they know that when they come to us with something, we're not just going to like step in, take over, fix it, and do it,
Yeah.
because kids want to be independent. I mean, that is, I mean, maybe we should do a whole video on this, but um, the whole thing of like how people call the terrible twos, like it just hurts my heart, honestly, makes me cringe when people say that, because really what it is that period of time, it's the child that's really trying to just be more independent.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it as this terrible thing. I used to consciously remind myself, okay, I do not want to forever be tying my child's shoes. I'm going to allow them to struggle with it. I'm going to allow to take an extra 2 minutes or 1 minute sometimes. It's really not that long usually to allow my kid to do this. There may be an odd time that I need to actually step and say, actually, you know what? We are in a really big rush. I do really need to do this for you right now. But hey, but the majority of time could be, hopefully will be allowing our kids to do those things. Like you said, yes, if it's life or death, obviously we're going to step in.
Yeah.
But the majority of time, we really don't need to. It's it's like our ego maybe that we're like, well, and like even just like in our definition, it comes from a good place. Like it,
Totally
because I mean,
does.
we've had so many more years of experience. Of course we would do things differently. I mean, of course we would. Just
Right?
like if we went to our parents would probably still nowadays do something differently than we would, even because they've had so many more years than us. Like,
Yeah.
and I would love to get to the place where it's just that's the beauty of raising kids,
Yeah.
instead of this is the way it has to be. This has, like, and then, I mean, you have more than one child. Well, every child is so different then.
So
Every
different.
child. I thought after, like, with five, that I'd at least get maybe two that I could be sort of similar. No. Mm-mm. No, they're all so different.
Yeah.
And it takes time. It takes time to learn about each of our kids. It takes
It does.
time to that radical acceptance for each one of them, of where they're at.
Yeah.
And there's, a couple of the skills that we use to try and keep us out of fix it factor or get us out. We will like stop and wait. And the wait is asking ourselves, like, what am I thinking? Why am I talking? And this is for us as parents, actually. And I've taught it to my kids, and my kids can do it too. But, in this sense, for us, and just asking that question. And then we can ask, and you talked about this too, like asking our kids questions, asking them open questions to get the answer, and really listening for the answer, not asking to give our answer. We're truly asking out of curiosity to hear what their answer is. And then just allowing things to be. And I think that's one of the hardest things as moms, especially if we can see down like the road where it's like, okay, that's not going to go as you think. But we can ask and just say like, hey, would you like my opinion? And I've had my kids say no. And that's when I need to be like, okay.
Yeah.
And then also have the I don't know, the regulation afterwards. If it didn't go the way they thought, to not say, oh, I told you so. Like that ruins the whole thing too. We don't want to do that either. But, just to be in that space, because we are going, the reality is, like we said last week, let's say it again, we'll probably keep saying it this whole month, is like the reality is there will be storms.
There will. Yeah.
And there's going to be more of them. Right now, it's like a worldwide storm that's going on. So not only is like all the storms in each of us, in each of our kids, in each of like our communities, everything, it's like this worldwide storm that's going on as well.
Exactly. And I also, another quick part that I know that we both experienced, part of the mental health storm, a lot of it can be part of trauma. And I think that we're just starting, in my opinion, to really scratch the surface of how much trauma plays a part in our mental health. And, so often, I know I was one of those people, like when I was diagnosed myself with complex PTSD, and I remember thinking, well, I've never served in wars, and how can I have PTSD? And then learning what it is, and learning that complex PTSD, I hadn't even heard of that before. And so there is something that we need to understand, that trauma can happen to anyone, and we all experience it. And that trauma in our body doesn't matter what the trauma is from. Trauma is trauma. And we tend to rank it. We all rank it. We're like, well, I can't really share that because this person has that, and so that's so much worse. Our body doesn't know that. It doesn't know the difference. Trauma is trauma. And so we also need to understand that for our children as well. And sometimes, unfortunately, how we can have a role in our children's trauma.
Yeah.
And so that is another huge part. And again, going back to my daughter's attempt, realizing that by me trying to push her, by us trying to get her to a level that at that point, and still she's not, she doesn't have the capacity to, that was creating a trauma response in her, that she couldn't measure up. She couldn't get there, that there was something wrong and broken in her. Well, that is actually on me as her parent. And so that is a whole other thing that we unpack. And I know that and the idea of our own self-concept and building our child's self-concept is extremely important. And they're separate. My self-concept is very different than my children's, and allowing them to explore their own. And how do I help her with that? How do I support my child in exploring her own self-concept? Because they're going to get it from somewhere. And I know in the case of our daughter, she went into some really scary and unhealthy chats online that gave her the step-by-step instructions of what to do. And so she was looking for answers, and she was getting it in the wrong place because she didn't feel safe in that time to talk to us. Am I grateful that that has changed now? Yes. Have we put in the work and the time? Yes. And the other side of that was I helped create that trauma in her, even though I thought I was doing what was best. And I love how this idea that the two things can be true at the same time. I was doing my best, and it created trauma. It created a problem. It hurt, and I need to take responsibility for that. And so yes, we can do our best, and it can cause hurt. It can cause pain. It can cause trauma. And so then having to heal that is just a whole other layer to our parenting and navigating, those mental health storms that are going to come. They just are. And, as you said earlier, right now we are in like a worldwide mental health crisis storm that we have never seen on this level. And so it does really start with us, and then how do we help our kids navigate that for themselves as well?
Well, and that's something that, and we didn't go into very specific, like in this video, we have in other videos gone into, like we've done an assessment, a Wendy assessment. It's just at wendy.ai. And that's where we found a lot of, I don't know, say answers, but insights into who we are and how we got here, why we do things the way we do, why we think the way that we do. It just opened up it opened up dialogue for so many stories. Yeah. And those are the stories where we have to start with ourselves, that then we can have those conversations and open up the dialogue with our kids. And so that's been huge. And then the other piece that we have a very close relationship with, and you especially, with the Amanda Todd Legacy Foundation. And I mean, it literally, like what Carol is doing with that foundation because of her daughter taking her own life because of online, the cyberbullying and all of that. I mean, that's what you lived that too. And so that's another piece that, we've connected with Carol there. And through the Amanda Todd Legacy Foundation, they've actually gifted money for our moms, for some moms, to be able to get some free months. And so we're so grateful to Carol for that. And I also know that October 10th is a very special day. It's World Mental Health Day, but it's also the day that Amanda took her own life. I think I saw 9 years ago. Is it? Anyways, I might have that wrong, but
I think it's 2012. So yeah.
So you will see purple going across our screens and stuff too. That's coming up in the next 2 days. 2 days it is. Yeah. So on Sunday, so Thanksgiving weekend, or here in Canada, anyways, it's Thanksgiving weekend. So,
yeah, Americans are probably like, no,
we got another month and something to go. So, but
our turkeys are frozen coming.
Yeah, exactly. I have mine out. I have one out anyways. So, but I want to thank you for sharing about that, because, it's those two things. I know, like it hurts, and it's a hard space to be in, to share that. And you have such a heart to have that as a healing time. I loved what you said. You said this the other day, and you said it earlier too. Like, this is part of our story, and shame will not be part of it.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to me. And And then when you're talking about like, as we need to build our own self-concept. And that is a huge reason why is working on our self-concept so that we know who we are, what we believe, what we think, who we want to be. And then we can help our kids as well learn their self-concept. So, we don't have all the answers. We're not doctors, although I think
doctors
both of us
don't
probably
have all the answers
could be. And exactly, no one has all the answers. We're just like two moms that are just doing our best with what we know and always learning and trying to just stay in curiosity, radical acceptance, that ambiguous grief that comes and goes, like just all of it. And, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it a lot. And I know, anyone who watches this will as well. So awesome. So we will sign off for today. So this was about our kids. Last week was about moms. Next week, we're going to be diving into the mental health storms with special needs and health challenges. And again, that's an area that we both have a lot of life experience in.
A lot. a lot.
Yeah. And not that we ever wanted, medals for that, the amount of that we've dealt with, but, it is definitely something very close to our hearts that we definitely want to talk about. So we're looking forward to that for next week. So
definitely.
All right. Thanks. So Wednesday nights, every Wednesday night, we have our NJAM Conversations every Wednesday night. Any mom is invited. You can come this week. So October 13th, I think it is, we will be talking specifically mental health storms with our kids. So that is this coming week. Depending on when you're seeing this, just so you know, this is for October 13th. But every Wednesday night, though, we are having them. All our social media has the links to grab the Zoom link and stuff in it. So we just hope to see you as a mom there. Otherwise, we can, anyone we can have conversations with on our social media. So
awesome. Right. Happy Thanksgiving in Canada.
Oh, yes, in Canada.